and then whoever it's directed to, the other candidate will then have 30 seconds to respond to that as well. So we're going to start with our current sitting mayor, who is Mike Caldwell, and I'm going to give you this microphone.
Jill, thank you. Before you go away, can you give it up for Jill? We met in a really difficult circumstance a number of years ago when it was my first year, and thank you for being a part of the league and for everything that you've done. You're an inspiration to me, so thank you very much. So I'll sit down and try to get out of the light a little bit, but what a pleasure to be here at the Oasis Community Gardens. This started 14 years ago, and my wife at the time was working with the Junior League, and this was a big, huge lot of pavement and weeds and bad behavior and activity. So to see what the Junior League has done with this lot and with this infill project has been amazing. So Katrina, if you're listening, thank you. That's my beautiful wife back there. She was the project manager back then. You guys have done an amazing job putting this together and having this gathering place in the heart of our East Central area in our downtown. What a pleasure to be here and to see what you guys have done with this. So we look forward to seeing what happens in the future with it. Thank you all for being here. As was mentioned, I'm the mayor. I've had the opportunity to serve Ogden for the last 8 years. Thank you. One of the things that's been really important to me has been community service and public service. So I was hired by Weber County just after the Olympic Committee came through, and I was born and raised in Ogden. And when I went to Weber State University, you would drive, to give some context to that for some of the people that are new, in 1993, when I was a senior at Weber State University, 35 of the 43 buildings on historic 25th Street were vacant and boarded. There was nothing going on down there. It was a scary place to go. It had been for a long time. We'd been through decades of economic decline, and there was not a lot to be optimistic about in terms of what was happening in downtown Ogden. Having grown up here, I loved the history of Ogden. I loved its cultural assets. I loved the stories we could tell about this great community that was the crossroads of the West. You look at a lot of the Chamber of Commerce materials that came out, it said you couldn't go anywhere without coming through Ogden. Back in the day, we had 100 trains a day that came through downtown Ogden because they all had to refill their water and coal cars. And so all of the commerce that happened in this great state of ours really did key and was located in downtown Ogden. It's where a lot of the financial institutions grew. It was where a lot of the great innovations came. You look at the Browning family, Utah Construction, the Marriott hotel chain. So much happened here that we can be really proud of. And we wanted to see that come back. We wanted to see Ogden be a source of pride, a source of uniqueness, a source of inventiveness in our community again. And I spent the last almost 20 years working on doing a lot of that. I was one of the founders of the Goal Foundation. Once the Olympics came through, we had 3,000 volunteers that were either on mountain at Snow Basin or at the ice sheet. And when the Olympic torch came through downtown, we had 106,000 people that came down to Washington Boulevard to celebrate this great thing. And we knew there was a lot of latent energy. People wanted to get re-engaged. They wanted to see Ogden grow back into its great space and to have that unique place along the Wasatch Front again. And I think we've done a great job of that in the last number of years. This is not the same community it was 20 years ago. A lot of that has been focused around economic development. That's one of the things that we'll continue to focus on as we move forward. One of the things that I've heard a couple of our occupational physicians talk about is that you don't get people well so they can go back to work. You get them to work so they can get well. And I really believe that. That's one of the reasons we've worked so hard on economic development and economic prosperity in Ogden in the last number of years. That's something we'll continue to do. In terms of the entire nation, a city of 90,000 people per capita, we've been one of the most successful job creating cities in the entire United States of America. It's something I'm very proud of, understanding where we came from, and it's something we will work really hard on as we move into the future. One of the other things that makes Ogden extremely unique is that we were rated by a number of organizations in the last number of years as the second most charitable community in the United States of America. In terms of charitable hours, volunteer, that's a reflection on all of you. Charitable donations given and volunteer hours given that lifts a community. And so when you have a community like that, where people want to show up, they want to get involved, they want to get engaged, Junior League's a great example of an organization that wants to go do that. They take their resources and give it to people that are less fortunate than themselves and stand each other up. That's a community you can really build on and do some amazing things with. It's one of the things I'm extremely proud of. Being the mayor and being a representative of this community, it's something I've been supportive of. It's something my kids have grown up with. We've been involved in public service for a long time, and it's something that I think is in the DNA of Ogden, and it's something I'm extremely proud of and look to continue. I'm really proud of where we are, what we're doing, the uniqueness of this community, its inclusion, its diversity, the opportunity people have to come and create a life for themselves, whatever that wants to look like, whatever that wants to feel like, whether you're an athlete, an artist, somebody that just wants to be involved in the community with the downtown, with the heartbeat. We look at things that have happened in the last number of years, like the Twilight concerts that sell out. More than 50% of the people that come from outside of the area. They ride the front runner in. They talk about what a great community this is, how close it is, how we don't have change. We have authenticity and an authenticness that you can't duplicate in many other areas. That's something I'm really proud of. And a lot of that is from all of you that are involved in this. I'm looking at some of the JLO sustainers and some of the other people that really weathered the dark times we had for a number of different decades, and I'm proud that we can stand on your shoulders and continue your efforts forward. We're in a lucky position that we have such an abundance of resources and abundance of opportunities here, and access to opportunity that you don't have in a lot of other places. One of the things I think we face as we move forward are growth challenges. I tell this story a lot. I'm kind of a ski bum and a bike geek by trade. My brothers left last March. They had a good snow day at Snowbird, and they thought, oh, we live in Kaysville, which is unfortunate. We're trying to get them into Ogden. But they thought, let's go ski up at Snowbird. We haven't been up there in a long time, and it took them 5 hours to get less than 40 miles from Kaysville, Utah, up Little Cottonwood Canyon because the traffic was so congested and so bad. So growth issues and how we manage transportation are going to be a big part of how we define our community as we move forward. I've been the chair of the Wasatch Front Regional Council, which is the long-range master planning organization for the Wasatch Front. That's something I'm very passionate about. I was talking to somebody earlier in 2014. I rode my bike to work every single day of that entire year to talk and to push active transportation and multimodal transportation and how we build out our community in the next number of years. That's something I'll continue to do. It's something I'll continue to push on. And I think leadership happens more by example. One of my favorite quotes that I say all the time is by Henry David Thoreau, "What you do speaks so loudly I can't hear what you say." I'm proud to stand on my track record of what we've done in the last 8 years up here, what I've done in the last 20 years in this community, what I've done in the last 48 years of living in this community. We appreciate that, and I am really proud of what we've been able to collectively create together. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your engagement and your involvement in Ogden and helping create this beautiful city that we love. And appreciate you being here tonight. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your support in November. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Angel Castillo, and I am running for mayor. I'm a member of the Ogden City Planning Commission. I am a board member for YCC, which focuses on women's domestic violence uses and violence for families. And I'm also on the board for Roads to Independence, which focuses on mobility issues for the city. I fell in love with Ogden when I came here for a bike race in 2014. I didn't know I could be emotional about mountains until I had them. And when I came home from the bike race, I wouldn't shut up about it. And we were planning to move anyway. I'd relocated here from Los Angeles, and I left Los Angeles for a laundry list of very distinct reasons. It was not home. It never felt like home. It has no sense of community. It's a large, sprawling suburb that has poorly managed density. There is a housing crisis. There is a homeless crisis. And the city didn't plan enough in advance how to handle their growth, how to handle the problems that every city does. Because all across the United States, we do have a homeless and a housing problem. And so I wanted to make sure that the city that I had chosen, that I fell in love with, that I plan to grow old and die in, doesn't make the same mistakes that Los Angeles did. So I unpacked my U-Haul on a Saturday. I showed up on a city council meeting on a Tuesday, and I stalked our city planner to get on the planning commission, because it's not a very sexy thing, but city planners are the unsung heroes of the city. They decide where density is going to happen, how you're going to move people, what is our growth going to look like. And the challenge is not just what's happening right here in front of us, being reactive to that, but looking 10, 15 years down the road in the future. How are you going to manage the growth that's happening with Utah? We are, as a state, we're going to have 5 million people by 2050. We are growing at the rate of 1 bountiful year. That's 44,000 people. And that is starting to affect Ogden. And I hear a lot of it in the Planning Commission side of people who are, well, we've heard it before, but it's really coming. We have data from ChemC Gardner. We have data from Weber County Health. The City Council has had a 4-week series talking about housing and how we're going to handle it. And people have a tendency to be passionate about things they have a direct experience with. So I'm going to tell you a story of a single mom and a little girl who the mom worked 2 jobs at nights at a factory, and the grandmother took care of the child. And the only way that family made it is because they lived in the bottom basement of a 3-flat apartment. And the basement apartment was rented out below market rate because Mrs. Chacho, the Italian immigrant who lived on the first floor, had a fixed income, and she needed some more money to get by, and her sister lived on the top floor. Well, that little girl was me. And I remember coming home, and I remember sitting down at a table where there were piles of quarters, and I wanted a gumball. I asked for a quarter for a gumball, and my mom burst into tears, and I couldn't understand why. Because at that particular time, as a single mom, my mom was counting quarters for rent. My mom was counting quarters to decide whether or not we were going to have power or whether or not we were going to pay rent. And we have over 30,000 people here in Ogden that have that same issue. The East Central neighborhood is of a lower socioeconomic demographic, and we have plenty of resources available on a city level, on a county level, on a state level, on a federal level that those people need to be getting attached to. And I'm passionate about housing because if you don't have affordable housing, that's where you have a homeless problem. And that was presented in City Council that Weber County Health Department flat out said, here's the data. When you don't have enough low-income housing and middle-income housing, your homeless problem is going to increase. Now, there's a plethora of things that are happening with, we have a lot of outside cities that are pushing people here that are upping our numbers, but we can no longer put our head in the sand. We really have to start taking steps to make sure people are connected to resources. And so I'm passionate about affordable housing because I've lived it. I know what it's like. I know what it's like for someone to wake up and go, am I going to be able to pay the rent? And we are a working class town. Our median income is $43,000. $43,000. And that's working class. That's people who work at Costco, people who work at your gas stations, and we're not even talking about baristas and restaurants. And as we continue to grow as a city, if we want to make sure that we are keeping our working class in a safe place that they can afford to live, as a city, we're going to have to take some steps to provide some pressure outlets to allow for housing. And that's inclusionary zoning, that's accessory dwelling units, that's tiny homes. It's a series of pressure release valves that'll help us ease through that. So I'm super passionate about housing. And while Mike has pointed out that we live in the most second giving city in the nation, I feel we are missing a huge gap. If we have so many people that are so philanthropic, that are willing to help, why isn't it being directed and driven by the city to work collectively with the nonprofits, to work with the county, to be able to harness that, to help people who need extra attention with regards to growing their businesses? And I am not talking about handout, I'm talking about hand up. Every single thing involving inclusionary zoning, every single thing involving Weber County Center of Excellence has nothing to do with the city spending any more money. It's just connection to resources and mentors. And mentors changed my life. Sports changed my life. There are a series of things that happened in my life that kept me from being stuck in intergenerational poverty, and we have a large segment of our population that needs some mentoring, that needs connections to resources. And we need to start to focus on business development that is staying small, that what's here right now, and then tapping into what's happening at Weaver. We have kids that are graduating with multiple degrees, and they're working somewhere else because we don't have the appropriate jobs for them to get paid with their degrees. So we need to balance some of that. And there is no magic bullet for any of these answers. But from my perspective and from what I've seen, I don't feel we're doing enough. And these things are important to me because I've had those experiences, and I want to make sure that we are all taken care of. And from a business standpoint, making sure that our small businesses are thriving, making sure that we have people in our community that are living in a healthy, safe environment is going to raise our acumen as a city. With the tide, all ships rise. And we are going to develop a vibrant community by making sure that we have safe, affordable places for people to live, being connected to resources for training, for jobs. And it just takes someone who is driving that particular narrative of why we need to be more engaged with that. I'm not saying that we don't do some things that I'm not proud of. There are many things that happen in Ogden that are working really well. Like the Own in Ogden program is amazing, but we need to do more of it. We spent $17.9 million last year developing commercial property, and $300,000 of that was Own in Ogden. I'm thinking that's a little lopsided. We spent $50 million on properties that are sitting empty right across the street. The Rite Aid property has been empty forever, a really long time. There's no return on investment that's happening. I'm all for the city buying commercial property, but I want to see a return on investment before we continue to buy more multiple properties. There's no development agreement signed for the Hostess building, for the Swift building, or for the Rite Aid property. That's $50 million of your tax dollars that could have been going back into your police, could have been going back to your sidewalks, could have been going back into your community to raise up educational opportunities for kids that may be disadvantaged, working with our local nonprofits. All of these things are important to me because I could have been that person that's stuck in intergenerational poverty. There but for the grace of God, there but for the grace of mentors and sports and people that were my heroes that took me along a path and decided that this is what you need, here's how we're going to help. Nothing was given to me, it was worked for, but it's that kind of ethic that Ogden has. We are a gritty, bootstrap economy people. Working class, blue collar, cool little small businesses. Let's focus on those things. Let's create a vibrant and diverse economy and businesses, and then we can attract larger businesses there. So I am running because I'm seeing places, not necessarily where we're failing, but where we could be doing better. And I am more focused on making sure that the people that we have here have clear access to how to move forward to build personal wealth, and that takes communication. And that is one thing that our city is failing on. We do not have a clear communication of the programs that are available. How many here know that you can apply for the Own in Ogden program? How many people know what that's about? Okay, so less than a third of the people here. That's a communication problem. It's a shining gem of our administration. And we want to make sure that everybody knows about that so that people can get the assistance that they need to get into homes, to be stakeholders in the community and have a proudness about the home that they own. We need to make sure that we have communication so that you know who to talk to, where to go, to get the information that you need so that you can be connected and move forward for your success. And I intend to be that clear, effective communicator to get that information out to our community and continue to take steps for uniting us. Thanks.
Thank you to both our candidates for those statements. I'm going to turn to the questions from our audience now.
The dog has a question.
A few. I've heard a few questions hollered out. So Mike, we're going to start with you. First question is, what are your plans to give more property right liberties?
To give more property right liberties? So one of the things we have that's unique about Ogden is that we're a built-out community. And so we get this question all the time. It's a real delicate balance between what our code enforcement wants and what neighbors want. Some people want to hoard things and have messy yards, and you have out-of-state landlords that don't take care of their properties, and it makes the neighbors upset. So it's a real delicate balance, but we absolutely respect property rights here, and it's something that's really important to us. One of the unique things we have in Ogden that we're trying to change is that over 70% of the community turned into rental units. And so you had out-of-state landlords that gobbled up big tracts of real estate in our community and wouldn't really take care of them. And one of the comments that was made earlier was about middle-income housing and middle to low-income housing. And not only do we meet the need of that, the Weber Housing Authority said we have over a 4,000 unit surplus in our community of low to middle-income housing units. So we are carrying far more than our load for that, and we have really aggressively addressed that, and there's not another community doing more to address that than we are in Ogden City.
Thank you. Angel will go ahead and have a response, and that's 30, and I'll just remind you guys the time.
Got it.
I should have said that to begin with, that it's...
Those numbers that are quoted are for Ogden Clearfield. The state makes the city inventory, their middle and their low income, and the state decided that it's going to be Ogden Clearfield numbers. It's not Ogden. It's Ogden Clearfield. So no, we do not have a surplus. We are at a deficit. Weber County Health has told us that we need more middle. And we need more middle because there are people that are living in the middle that are taking lower income housing because they're saving and they're trying to change their situation. Pay attention to the difference when you Google this and you look it up between Ogden and Ogden Clearfield.
Okay. Angel, the next question is for you. How can we increase the financial wealth of our citizens?
Financial wealth is connected to opportunity, and opportunity looks different to each circumstance. A single mom who's taking care of 2 kids might not want to get into real estate, but maybe she can do a home food business that will still allow her to be a full-time parent while the kids are getting ready to go to school and get some supplemental income. It has to do with meeting people where they are and then evaluating what their need is and what their skill set is. There is no one-size-fits-all. Not everybody goes to Ogden Tech. Not everybody's going to be a nurse. But what you have to do is you have to make sure that you let people know that there is a program, that we're here to help you. And again, I keep pointing to the new program, the Excellence Center that the Weber County is fielding, that is going to be doing just that. It's very similar to the YCC model. When women come into YCC, they have a time that they decompress, and then they move on, and then they're taught skills and mentored through a process so that they are able to leave the center and stand on their own 2 feet. And it looks different for each woman. And building personal wealth is going to look different for each and individual family. You have to connect them to the appropriate resources.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
2 things in response to that question. Ogden was the cover story of a Newsweek article 4 years ago that said this is the most economically mobile community in the entire United States of America. So connecting people to opportunities, connecting people to jobs is really important. And then as is mentioned, the Own in Ogden program, one of the biggest indicators of getting people out of intergenerational poverty is getting them equity, letting them own something and start to build equity and start to build their way out of it. The amount of jobs we've created, the recognition we've had for the most economically mobile community in the entire United States really matters. And those housing programs, getting people into housing, letting them build equity and move on, are 2 enormous indicators that we're doing a lot of the things right.
Thank you. Mike, the next question is for you. Ogden needs more high-tech manufacturing jobs. How will you accomplish bringing more high-tech jobs to town?
Well, that's a great question. That's something we've worked very hard on, and we're working right now with some of our key industries. we're not going to be Silicon Slopes for the most part. One of the things we've seen a tremendous amount of growth in is aerospace and defense. And as the F-35 came in at Hill Air Force Base, we've seen a blow up of different opportunities that are coming right. Just a couple of weeks ago, we cut a ribbon for the Northrop Grumman facility. That's going to be almost 3,600 jobs right on our border. We worked hard to find ways to get that together, to put that together. They're going to off-source a lot of those coding and high-tech jobs from Hill into different areas. We've been working very hard with them. We're expanding our fiber access so that they have internet and they have the facilities to be able to accommodate that. We're seeing a lot of growth in that area. And Weber State University just a number of years ago had one engineering track at Weber State University. Now they have 6. They've recognized that we have got to fill the pipe so that we can put engineering jobs into those demanding areas and those demanding and growing industries here, and we've worked really hard with the legislature to fund that.
Thank you, Mike. Angel, same question.
Bringing tech.
Mm-hmm.
We deserve a piece of the tech pie. Governor Herbert has spent millions and set aside millions for the development of tech with both Silicon Slopes and Point of the Mountain, and there is no reason why that we cannot be participating in that tech initiative movement down here. We have something that Draper doesn't have. We have mountains, we have outdoor access, and Ogden is experiential, and it has to do with focusing on not necessarily large tech companies that are going to be here, but something that is going to fit the scale and scope of Ogden. I'm talking about engineering, gaming, computer programming. Those are easy things with high-paying jobs that don't necessarily have to have factories built, but can follow into manufacturing.
Thank you. Angel, the next question's for you. Describe your sustainable plan for Ogden Canyon.
Ogden Canyon is the front porch to our outdoor recreation. There's a reason that I went to the Weber County Commissioners meeting a few weeks ago and stood up and vehemently opposed a gravel pit that was going to be there. It was going to destroy our air quality. Particulate is what makes air bad, plus carbon emissions. And we have to, as a city, start taking steps to make sure that we are moving towards a sustainable thing. And again, as a planning commissioner, the first thing that I can point to is the fact that our current code is 2012 and not 2017 with regards to homes. And if you talk to anybody about energy management, homes and businesses are the #1 waster of energy. And we don't necessarily have to have all LEED certified buildings, but just coming up to 2017 code requiring every house and every building to be built on 2017 code will help. And I want to apply for every single grant that's available. I don't understand why we do not have more charging stations here. They don't cost us anything. We just have to find the property and apply for the grant.
Okay, and I just want to make sure the question, whoever wrote the question, I think there is a lot of interest in this topic. I've seen a couple of other questions on this that we may not be able to get to. I'd like to give you 30 more seconds. Can you address the sustainable Ogden Canyon specifically?
We have to work with our county, and we have to take into account the needs of the citizens that are there. And I think it's imperative to recognize that Ogden Canyon is very different than downtown Ogden, and that we have to make rules and regulations that are matched to the communities that they're in, as opposed to a big blanket, this is how we're going to deal with everything. We need to make sure that we are taking into account the quality of life for people that are there, and that we are making decisions based on what their needs are with regards to water, with regards to mobility, and how it impacts us overall.
Okay, thank you. And Mike, I'll have you have a full minute to respond to that.
Well, Ogden Canyon's a unique resource for us. All of the water that we use for the most part in Ogden comes through Ogden Canyon. We just did a piping project. That was my first year in office. So you have a 24-inch pipe that goes through the roadway. You have a 36-inch pipe that goes on the old Bamberger rail line. So those are critical infrastructure components for what's happening for us in Ogden City. Ogden Canyon is not in Ogden City. So it's certainly sensitive to us. It's something that's very important to us. That pipeline we replaced was 102 years old, and we were losing 5 million gallons of treated water per day through that 100-year-old 24-inch pipeline that went under the canyon. So it was very disruptive for Ogden Canyon for us to go in and replace that. But when you tell people we're losing 5 million gallons of treated water that Ogden residents were paying for, that was absolutely critical for us to go in and do. One of the challenges of Ogden Canyon is that it's so narrow in spots. And one of the things we've worked hard for, and I was on the Weber Pathways Board of Directors for a long time, is that you can't ride a bike, you can't walk your dog, you can't do anything through that road because it's so busy. F-350s are pulling trailers and boats and everything else. So we've been working hard to get the trail done. They've been working on that for 80 years. We want to have multimodal transportation through the canyon, or a place where people can walk their dogs, access the river, recreate that beautiful mountain environment that's there. We've done amazing river restoration work in Ogden City that I'm extremely proud of. That's something we'd look to continue in Ogden Canyon. And lessening traffic, giving more modes of transportation and options through there, I think is critically important.
Thank you. Mike, this next question will start with you. What is your opinion of a citizens' police review board?
That's come up a lot in the last month. We had a very unfortunate officer-involved shooting, and we've had a lot of people debating what's happening there. One of the things I've committed to do is to allow the investigation to run its course. It's an independent investigation that happens there. But one of the things you see sometimes with citizen review boards is they're led by emotion rather than logic. And a lot of people that aren't trained with how police work, how post-certification works, police officer standards and training off, and how they work through that, that's a critical part of making decisions on whether or not something was justified or something was not. And so we want to give our officers every opportunity to have those investigations occur without having a whole bunch of emotional knee-jerk reactions that occur before decisions are made. And that's difficult. When something like that happens, it's a lose-lose for everybody involved. I guarantee the 4 officers that were involved there did not want to do that. They gave instructions, they worked hard to de-escalate the situation, and de-escalation has been a big part of that conversation, and our Ogden City police officers do probably 3 times the amount of training and de-escalation and use of force and everything else that any other agency does along the entire Wasatch Front. And so my goal is to make sure those investigations have their opportunity to be pushed through, but that everybody gets a fair chance.
Thanks, Mike. Angel?
I believe that citizens police review boards are an essential part, but not a governing part of how a police department is run. It is essential that members of the community have a seat at the table, have a voice, and are involved in the discussions so that they can go back to the community and let them know that things are as they should be, or maybe we should pay attention to a particular area. I do not believe that a citizens board should have the ability to hire and fire, but you need an outside perspective. You need to make sure you measure what matters. Our last 4 shootings involving a death involved multiple officers. That tells me statistically that we should be looking at what happens when there are multiple officers arriving on a scene, and perhaps look to what other cities are doing and what their protocol is. Protocol keeps people safe. It's a very rigid set of standards. If you arrive, there are multiple people, this will happen, and then hopefully the protection is for the officers. If they are following a protocol to the letter, they are legally protected, just like a nurse is legally protected in a hospital by following medication protocol. And yes, sad things may occur and they may not always work, but at the very least, they are within the protection for the citizens and the protection for the police.
Thank you. I know we're running low on time, and there are still a lot of questions in here, but what I'd still like to do is I'm going to do one more question, and then I'm going to have you make a closing statement, and then we're still going to have time to mingle. So those of you who didn't get your questions answered, we will have time to be able to talk to the candidates individually to ask your questions. So where did it go? The last question, and I believe we're on Angels first, yep. Which this one's written to you, but I'm gonna have both of you answer. What will you do to continue the growth in Ogden in the sports industries, such as Suntoe, is that right? Suntoe watches, Solomon skis, Crank Brothers tools, Maverick Rim, etc. Thanks. And will you continue to allow Ogden to host sports events like Xterra Goal Foundation?
Sports is the reason that I found Ogden and fell in love with Ogden, so I'm probably a little biased towards this particular answer. It was set up during the Godfrey legacy that we were starting to recruit outdoor industry, and it's a perfect fit. And it was to make sure that we brand Ogden as a cool place to be and tying the outdoor industry to our mountains and our access to trails. And the companies that are here are great companies. They're world renowned and they do great things. And Mavic and Envy make some of the most phenomenal wheels. I'm a cyclist, so that's important to me, that you're ever going to find. And so I think we should continue to move with the sports industry and allow them to have access to buildings and bike parks that work for them to help showcase their projects. And of course, sports events are the reason that I came here, and I think we should have more of sports events. So I would completely support that. But at the same time, I think we need to balance our business development time and budget to not all outdoor industry heavy. We really need to start focusing on tech, because that is the next evolution that is going to take us to bringing higher paying jobs here. And it is the wave of the future with regards to manufacturing, both the thought side of tech for programmers and both the manufacturing side of tech for objects.
Thank you. Mike?
Well, that's a great question, and it's something I've been passionately involved in for a long time. I mentioned helping organize the Olympics when it came in 2002. I've been involved in recruiting almost every one of those companies, and at GOA today, I pushed forward a presentation to get another 100 jobs for Arc'teryx coming internationally and to be part of the Amer Sports Group that's here. I was the first race director of Xterra. I went and slept on a cruddy hotel room floor with my wife to pitch Xterra when that came. The thing about outdoor sports companies that are here is it's not just the jobs that are here, it's the lifestyle they validate when they're here. And so for every one outdoor recreation job, we probably get about 10 other companies that come because they want to give their employees that access to lifestyle. So we could, and that was a very strategic plan that we had moving forward. We could have gone and pushed a whole bunch of printed media out and everything else, but we felt like we couldn't compete with a Park City or a Salt Lake. We could bring people in, have them have an emotional, athletic experience that's here, and really showcase all of these great strengths that make us so unique. That has been a 20-year collaborative effort from a lot of people I'm looking at in the audience, and for me in particular, it's something we'll look to continue, but it's only part of the overall picture.
Thank you. We're going to give you guys the opportunity to make a closing statement. What we'd like you to focus on in your closing statement is what your vision for Ogden is in the next 5 years, and what do you bring to the table that will help accomplish that vision. Angel, we're going to start with you.
My major focus is going to be at the very essential core of what government is, and that is to make sure that public safety works, the buildings that don't collapse on us, the police and fire respond, and more importantly, infrastructure. We have a very aging infrastructure that has been neglected. We have $20 million worth of priority sidewalks that are a legal liability, that are out there that they need to be replaced. You want walkable cities, and you're going to promote Ogden is walkable, you have to be able to walk down the sidewalks. And so it's quality of life issues first. Some of the things that we've been hearing from people have everything to do with the concern for public safety, the concern for sidewalks. And I hear over and over on the 6,000 doors that I have knocked since I've started this, that housing affordability is an issue. And the easy way to fix that is to sign into law inclusionary zoning, which costs the city nothing. It gives the developers a bunch of benefits that make it very attractive for them to build here. And with each building that has 10 units or more, 20% of those units are set aside for middle income and lower income. And that's how we're going to start moving forward to help take the pressure off of the housing situation. You cannot control the price of single-family homes. The market determines that. But we need to make sure that your kids graduating from Weber with double degrees and a whole bunch of student loan debt are going to be able to have a place to live. And I've worked as a marketing consultant for 10 years. My forte is being able to look at a problem, divide the problem, and hire the appropriate people that have the absolute expertise and proven abilities in those fields to execute that particular vision.
Thank you. Mike?
Economic opportunity is what I ran on when I started 8 years ago, and it's what I'll continue to run on. I think we live in a community where people really want to take care of their families and take care of themselves, and we have seen a rising tide. CNBC called Ogden City one of the top 10 boom towns just 3 years ago. That was not the case 10 or 15 years ago when we were here and we were putting our kids into public school and everything else. That's something that will continue to be a primary focus. I'm positioned to help drive a lot of that. I'm on the Sports Commission board. Was the chair of the Wasatch Front Regional Council. I'm the vice chair of the Utah League of Cities and Towns. We can drive legislation that, for the most part, has been going south, and priorities have been going south because we hadn't had state leadership to bring a lot of that attention back to us. I'm in a position to do that. We've got multiple $100 million projects on the tee in the next number of years. When you look at $100 million for the bus rapid transit program that's going to connect Weber State and our downtown area, a lot of the development, transit-oriented development that will come with that. We've been working for a long time on that, and I'm positioned to take care of that in the next 4 years. And I'm very excited about that opportunity for Ogden.
Thank you. Can we get a round of applause for our candidates? We want to thank them for coming tonight and addressing our questions, and we want to thank all of you for coming and participating. And we still have some sunlight, and so we'd like to invite you to come and enjoy the booths that are out here, and we'll have our candidates also come out here that you'll be able to ask them your questions. And again, just a little plug for our rummage sale for the Junior League on Saturday. Please come and support the Junior League. And we're excited about our mayoral election, and we're really grateful for your participation tonight. Thank you.